It's quite obvious we have three experts with us this afternoon. We're bang on time, 4 p.m. for a Q&A. So thank you to our contributors for keeping to the programme. As part of our deliberative democracy process in Ireland, this is Citizens' Assembly is made up, as I mentioned earlier on, of 67 free members, free citizens of the Dublin City and County, and 12 of our councillors. We currently have 4 local authorities in the City and County of Dublin. And we have broken them up into 12 groups, and in each group we have a facilitator, and we're going to use the Q&A now that will we'll have one member of each table who will propose a question to our international expert panel on their reflections and their questions regarding directly elected mayors and local government. So I'll hand you over now to table 1. Thank you.
Hello, how are you? My name's Emma and I'm from Table 1, and I know you've mentioned like homelessness and housing crises, and I'm just wondering, to what degree did your model of mayor and local authority inform housing policy and combat homelessness, and has it been restricted by exterior forces like centralised government? I know you mentioned boroughs coming together, but how did it come together?
We might start with Andy. Andy, if you could maybe jump in there, please.
Yeah, thanks, Emma, and thank you, Table 1. Really good question. Back in 2017, when I was first elected, homelessness was the issue. It was spiralling, and it was linked to drugs like spice. I don't know if you had that problem in Ireland as well. I guess you probably did, where there was a combination of people who were on the street, but in a very, very bad place and condition on the street. And so it kind of coincided with my election. And the truth is, the 10 councils were not coordinated on the issue at the time. And it needed to be coordinated. And I made this, what some people thought was a rash promise. I said, at the top of my manifesto, we would end rough sleeping. When it shouldn't really be a rash promise, should it? Because surely in this day and age, it should be simple enough, no, to put a roof over every head every night of the week. And I just kind of kept saying that to people whenever they said to me I was being rash or promising the undeliverable. But actually, we've made a massive difference, and I guess this is where the mayoral role can come in. You can create a sort of challenge to the system, if you like, as well, by setting an ambition that the councils would not necessarily set individually themselves. So you can both challenge, and then you can bring the coordination underneath that challenge. So just two things to say. How have we gone from having 300 plus people sleeping rough across our 10 boroughs every night to, on the latest count, 79? Well, the first thing is I established a scheme called A Bed Every Night, which I didn't have a budget for when I came in, but we just started to fund by getting all the partners to put in. And I have a charity that I established, the Greater Manchester Mayor's Charity, that raised funds as well. It's £30 a night to give somebody a room. That's how we've worked it. And we've got all partners now playing in, not just the 10 councils, the NHS, Greater Manchester Police, the probation service. Tonight in Greater Manchester, over 500 people will be in a bed every night. And it's not just a bed when they're sort of turfed out and they have to go from, through the revolving door, if you like. It's the same bed every night. So once you go into the service, you stay where you are. And that is actually how you turn lives around, by giving people stability. And truthfully, the government haven't really, normally they are working against us. On this, they haven't, to be fair. They kind of saw what we were doing, and they did actually start to support us. So alongside A Bed Every Night, which is emergency temporary accommodation, we have a Housing First scheme, which we're running with the government, which runs to the same principle: give people a home without any pressure of a deadline to sort of, you get it for 6, it's a kind of home indefinitely. And then we put personalized support around people. And it's that ability of me to kind of get the health service working with the housing teams. Because actually homelessness is an issue that's not just a housing department issue. It kind of goes across addiction services, mental health services, and somebody's got to join those dots, and that's me. And I've hopefully been able to do that. So we've made a real difference. It's sustained, but with the cost of living pressures that we've got, we're worried about what lies ahead. But I hope that answers the question, Table One. It's ambition, and it's coordination, and it's commitment. And lastly, I did a walk around the streets of Manchester, city centre Manchester, on my first day in office, and I continue to do it. You've got to kind of live it and show it relentlessly that it's your personal priority. And I think that too makes the difference. And then the whole system has to buy in if the mayor is walking around and checking up for himself. So anyway, that's how we've done it. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. We'll move to table 2 unless we have any further comments from Anouch or from Larry.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, for example, on this subject of homeless people, we duplicated in Paris the Night of Solidarity from New York. So during a night, the Parisian who wants it can go and make patrols in order to have a very good vision and data of how many people are in the street and what are their situation. And this is on this principle that we created then the Community of Volunteers of Paris, because we felt that Parisian wants to engage. And for this example of homeless people, we have the Night of Solidarity in Paris, and then we have a lot of tools and dispositive in Paris in order to help people in the street. But you have to understand that in Paris, this is a competency, a mission of the state. So it's a bit complicated to manage the fact that we can do things at a city level, but this is the competency of the state.
Yeah. Boston's homeless situation is complicated by our weather. Unlike Los Angeles, where people can sleep outside and be safe, in Boston for a few months out of the year, you really cannot. That complicates our situation. We're also a victim of our own prosperity. When I was on the city council, the city was on its knees economically, which meant there was a lot of cheap housing. There were rooming houses, and people who were in between jobs or in between life situations could find a place. Those are now $2 and $3 million townhouses and condominiums. The rooming houses are gone. And so we've had a lot of people who have been on the streets. The mayor did a massive effort in her first months in office to relocate, give people a bed, like Andy said. 2 of those locations are within walking distance of where I live, and doesn't seem to be a problem. Some other neighborhoods have been very resistant. But there are some people who psychologically are happiest being on the street. And that it's a public health crisis as well as a governing crisis. And around here anyway, a lot of times there are drugs involved. When you arrest, when you put somebody to a treatment center, there is not one simple answer. And the mayor has taken the lead, and I think most of the councils have been very supportive.
Thank you, Anouch and Larry, for those contributions. I'll now hand you over to table 2.
Hi, my name's Susanna, and I'm from table 2. And my question might be more for Anouch, but I'm happy for everybody to pitch in. But we were really impressed on our table hearing about the citizen participation. Obviously, here we are taking part in a citizens' assembly, and I think we would all agree in the room this is an amazing experience, and we're learning a lot. And the thought of having a standing citizens' assembly which inputs into, how your city is run is really impressive in Paris. And so I guess I have a general question and a few kind of specific sub-questions. So I'm wondering, how did the Citizens' Assembly actually influence decision-making? And then I was just wondering, what's their term? Is it mandatory? Are they drawn from the electoral roll? How does it practically function?
Thank you very much for this question. So, first of all, as I said in my introduction, the Citizen Assembly is first a request from the Parisians themselves. So we had a big debate during the crisis of the Yellow Jacket in Paris. So we create this big debate in Paris in order to know how the Parisians want to strengthen the participation in Paris. And they suggested that we create a body with Parisians, drawn by lot, and with a very strong link with the Council of Paris. So then we had this mission of creating this body. So we asked some experts from a foundation called the FIDE in order for them to help us build the Assembly of Paris. So we have 100 Parisians drawn by lot. It's the very first time we do that, so it's a bit new for us, and this is an innovation, so we have to create the innovation. But the one thing which is really important for us is that they can be part of the decision making in Paris. So we wanted them to be able to really influence the decision making of the Paris Council. So we want them to be able to create deliberation, which is very new in France, obviously, but in Paris, of course. So we want them to be able on a subject to do the citizen watch, to then go further on a thematic, and then be able to create a deliberation, which is a bill in the Paris Council, and to pass this bill directly to the Paris Council, so the Parisian councillors can amend and can debate around this bill. But the idea is that the deliberation, the bill, pass directly from the citizen to the Paris Council without any filter, such as what was done, for the Convention for Climate Convention in France. So this is the same spirit. We want the citizen to be able to create deliberation and pass directly without no filter to the Parisian Council, and so they can be able to really create the law of Paris, and to be as well able to make some vows, to speak with the Parisian councillors, and to be able to really have a direct communication to the Paris Council. But the way of making the deliberation is the main subject we want to improve, and this is what we want to do for the next few months.
Anouch,
and sorry for the next question on the mandate. It's a year, so at the end of the year they will be able by half of the assembly to be able to continue the assembly or to leave. So it's a mandate of 1 year.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you, Table 2. Next question, please.
Hello, my name is James, and firstly I'd like to just thank the people here for their very interesting presentations. But my question is, in each of your respective systems, in Paris, Manchester and Boston, firstly, who does the elected mayor report to or is accountable to? And secondly, who sets the agenda for their role? Thank you.
Start with maybe Andy.
Well, thanks, James. I mean, obviously, I'm accountable to the public. I'm elected. The population of Greater Manchester is 2.8 million. So that's obviously everybody. So the adults, 2 million or so, get it who have a vote. I see it as that. That's my primary accountability. I have the leaders can hold me to account. So the 10 leaders can, and they do. I can assure you, they often. Why'd you do this? Why? There's often. We have those discussions and behind closed doors. But very much my system is a direct accountability to the public, because the bodies that I look after, different to the councils, are the Greater Manchester bodies. So Greater Manchester Police, Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Service, Transport for Greater Manchester, and if you look on our transport system's not brilliant. Dublin's is a bit better. I'm not sure it's much, you know what I mean. It's a bit fragmented, and it's not certainly not like Boston. I was in Boston recently, or Paris, and we're working on that. If you look on my Twitter feed in a given morning, you will see everybody. So this train's not this packed, and this bus hasn't turned up, and blah blah blah. The thing is, I don't begrudge that, because they've got one person to complain to now, and actually, I think they are holding me to account, because I've said I'm going to improve transport, make a London-style system. So it is a direct accountability sort of model. And who sets my job or my remit? Well, it's as simple as, again, me. I mean, I made a really deliberate decision when I left Westminster that the Labour Party wasn't going to ring me up and say, oh, you shouldn't say that, or you should do it. That doesn't happen. I, with the leaders, set the priorities. We set what we think is right for the city region. And that's where its legitimacy comes from. If you have a situation where it looks like somebody above you is pulling your strings, then I think you're in trouble, and I think it will fail. You know, I think Labour got in trouble in Scotland with, that's not city devolution, is it? It's a kind of national devolution. But it was always kind of sort of perceived as the branch office, and it was getting orders from Westminster. That will fail. You know, it's got to be about place first and independent speaking of minds for the place. So I set our priorities with our 10 leaders. I hope that answers your question, James.
Thank you.
It does indeed, Andy. We're on four questions every 15 minutes. But do you want to get in Larry? Do you want to complement that answer?
Yes, I mean, very similar. The mayor is answerable to the people. There's an election every 4 years. It's been that way for a long time. We also have in some jurisdictions in Massachusetts, but not in Boston, a recall provision where citizens can sign petitions and put the recall of the mayor on the ballot or other officials. And that's the supreme power that the people have over the mayor in between elections. No incumbent mayor of Boston has been defeated since 1949, and that was a fellow named James Michael Curley, and he had done a stint of his term at the federal penitentiary in Danbury. So that's probably a good reason not to re-elect someone. Other than that, every mayor has been elected, every duly elected mayor. We had an acting mayor who did not, but I don't consider that to be the same. But you're answerable to the people, and that's the way it should be.
Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you for the question. Thank you. Next question, please.
Hi, my name's Paula. So my question just relates to the whole reform process for local government. So I guess Andy and Larry may have something to say about this. So just as we're looking at all these issues, did you build on existing structures to engage the citizens more, or how do they react when, for instance, the GCMA and the directly elected mayor were introduced?
Maybe Andy?
Yeah, shall I take that? Yeah. I think that ours wasn't formed in a perfect way. You might remember George Osborne had an agenda around the Northern Powerhouse. And he basically did a deal with the 10 leaders then. The 10 leaders of Greater Manchester wanted to re-regulate the buses, put them back under public control. And George Osborne wanted a system of directly elected mayors. So they did a deal. The leaders got the power to re-regulate the buses, and they had to accept in return me. And they constantly remind me that my only role in life is to sort out the buses. But you know, it's grown a bit more than that. So it wasn't born in a perfect way. But actually, if you always, I think what we found, if you're over deliberative, and I hope this isn't, I'm not disagreeing with Anouch at all, but there is a risk you won't get anywhere. You know, it won't actually get done and I think in our case it probably wouldn't have happened if it was, you know, because we'd had these failed experiments before. And anyway, that's how it came about. So you know, the way in which kind of the citizens are involved now is they you know, obviously they vote every 4 years. We don't have a recall provision, and I wouldn't be against one, by the way. I think Larry made a good point there. That's a strength in their system. So ours is not perfect, and English devolution, as you know, is a very kind of rocky road, and it's had very false starts. But the 10 metro mayors of England now, and there are 10, all elected on the same basis as me, kind of are in place now and are beginning to work, I would say. And it was kind of just because the government just said, right, well, let's just get on with it, and we can't debate this forever. Now, I think the way you're going about it will make your system stronger in the long run, but ours is kind of is flourishing anyway, you know. And I think you you know, it's probably as well that somebody just grasped the nettle and made it happen, because something had to break the London centricity of England, and finally this system seems to have done it.
Maybe Larry, anything to add?
Yes, in our case in Boston, the participatory budgeting that will take place will be in conjunction with the city council. It will not be a separate set aside or a fiscal drop or whatever you want to call it. And as a former elected official, former city councilor, I happen to think that's the way any more democratic process should go, because government needs to function. There are crises where the mayor has to step up. In our case, we had a bombing at the Boston Marathon in 2013, and we all think of that whenever there's a marathon. And in a situation like that, whoever is mayor has to direct the police. In this case, they found the perpetrators, one of whom died, one is currently incarcerated. And you cannot have people sitting around discussing crises. I was acting mayor during the blizzard of '78, the biggest snowstorm we ever had. I was 28 at the time. And we had martial law. That's not fun, but you know what? We got rid of the snow and the city survived. And I think you have to have that strong executive, and then you take it from there.
Thank you, Larry. We have approximately 20 minutes left, so thank you for the question, and we'll hand on to the next table, please. Thank you.
Hey there, my name is Jason Sheridan and proud member of Table 5. And thank you to the international speakers and everyone here today. So the question is pretty straightforward, and really it's to explain the benefits of a direct elected mayor better. Can you each share some specific examples of how you or your directly elected mayor made real change in your city? And more specifically, how did having a mayor with executive powers help this change?
Thank you. Let's start off with Anouch, please.
I'm not sure to have understood well the question. How do we made an impact on the municipal level, right?
Yes.
Okay. Many examples come to my mind, but for example, recently we created the municipal police in Paris, which was quite new. And we had, for example, to answer to one of the questions of who decide the mission of the mayor of Paris, we had to change the law in order to create this municipal police. So it's a police with complementary of the national police, because they don't have arms. They just go in the street and are here to, make the city peaceful, and in order to have a human presence in the streets. So I think, for example, this is a good example, because some of the time, when you go in Paris, and I mean, these are Parisians, so they're never happy, but they say to people like elected officials, oh, Paris is dirty, or Paris has a lot of insecurity. So I think the way to address this kind of issues was to create a municipal police in order for the Parisians to see people of service, public services in the street, able to answer the question, able to punish those who are putting away their trash or their cigarette maggots, So the idea was to put again a human presence in the street of Paris, and be able to reassure in a way the Parisians on the several subjects. So this is an example. I don't know if I answer your question, but same for the the tracks for the bikes in Paris. I think this changed the life of a lot of Parisians to be able to run a bike without, feeling insecure.
Thanks, Anouch. Anything to add, Larry or Andy, before we move on?
Yes, very briefly, the mayor of Boston has been instrumental in reinventing our city. We were a backwater. The factories had disappeared. And we've now become a center for health and education and life sciences. And the redevelopment of Boston has involved the city council as well. But the mayor has taken the lead this is a very different city than when I was growing up. And even when I was on the city council, I think it's a much better city. But someone has to be the singular head of government to make those tough decisions. And some of those decisions in the 40s and the 50s before my time included leveling some neighborhoods. And those are brutal decisions. Not sure we'd make the same ones today.
Just throw a few quickies in. Homelessness I've mentioned. That is a very different, in a very different position now. That will be one. A free bus pass for 16 to 18-year-olds. Other cities have that kind of thing. We just didn't, and that's made that's very tangible and direct. It doesn't just benefit the kids; it benefits their parents as well. It means they can go to any college or any job they want. That's something we're very proud of. We have taken the decision to put buses under public control. So we're building a London-style public transport system where, like Paris, or you'll tap in and tap out and you use any mode of transport, but that doesn't currently exist in England outside of London. The last example I'll give is a sort of voice example. I don't know if you ever saw this on the Irish media, but in the middle of the pandemic, October 2020, we were suffering because we had a higher case rate. And I think that reflects the fact that too many of our residents are in jobs where if they get ill, they can't stop work. And that's the insecurity of labour in Britain, which is just a scandal, to be honest, but that's how it is. The government were trying to close our bars, our restaurants, betting shops, bingo halls, you name it, and offer a 2/3 furlough. The wages of people in those places, you can't live on 2/3 of their wages. So I said, well, we're just not having it. And I don't know if you remember, there was something of a standoff between myself and Boris Johnson. And they tried to impose what they called Tier 3 on us. But in the end, they had to change the policy 3 days later. And then they got the 80% furlough that everyone else was getting. So, that is an example of how it's not always a policy you might introduce. Sometimes, and I don't think anyone should be fearful of this. Sometimes a city has to speak for the people of that place and do so as forcefully as you can if you think something is unfair. I don't think you should play politics in this role. I don't think you should go about point scoring every day, and I try not to do that. But I think when there's a real issue at stake that affects people's lives, it's your job to get out there and speak for them. People here expect that. They're a tough crowd here. They expect great people, but they want people to be tough for them. And I would say that was an example where the system we've got here kind of, came into its own.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for the question. Thanks for the answer. Thanks for the question. Just conscious that we have 7 questions to go with about approximately 17 minutes. So maybe to our contributors, we might just ask for one of you to answer the question. And if you have any follow-up, you might just make a nudge so I can see it. So next question, please. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kathy, and I have a question from table 6, primarily to Mayor DiCara. How did you maintain the non-partisan aspect of the mayoral role, or did party politics creep in?
We have been nonpartisan at least since 1909. I've never studied before that time. That was one of the great reforms of the progressive era. There was one effort by Kevin White when he was mayor to change the system and have partisan elections. That failed. And I think we've done very nicely. We're also a city at this point where not a lot of Republicans except in nursing homes. Most of the city's very Democratic, very left Democratic at this point. So I think if you had a partisan elections, it would all be in the we call the primary, where you compete among each other. So I think we're doing fine, and I hope we stick with it.
Thank you so much for that question. Fantastic questions, by the way. Great discussion, and let's keep it up. Thank you.
So hi, I'm Irish, and I've got a question from table 7. So our question is specifically for Paris, and we're wondering how the district mayors and the mayor for Paris work together.
it depends if we are on the same political group, I must say. So if it's a mayor from the opposition, it's obviously harder to work with them because they don't necessarily follow the lead of the mayor of Paris. But just for you to understand, 1 or 2 weeks before the Council of Paris, we have the councils of the district, and during this district, the deliberation for the bill of Paris are voted in this assembly. So sometimes, for example, a district of opposition can vote against a deliberation suggested by the mayor, but then at the end, since it's voted by the Parisian Council, the deliberation is voted, and then we can implement the policy. So this is what I was trying to say in the introduction, that we have to always exchange, consultate, speak with the boroughs, obviously more with the boroughs of the opposition, but mainly we constantly have to speak with them. For example, in my delegation, I always speak to the deputy mayors of the district, because at the end of the day, they are the people who are implementing the policy in a local way, you know. And we try to more and more, and this is a big consequences, I think, of the crisis, of the COVID crisis. We have to work closely with the local, because we have to give more and more of the power of the city to the local authorities, and here in that case, in the district council. So we have to give more and more. And I was speaking of the municipal police, for example, in the field of trying to make the city clean and with a lot of security. We have to give a lot of skills to the district, because we cannot do everything in a big level, in the Parisian level. We have to give more and more to the local authorities, and then we have to speak with them in order to make sure they are on our side and are implementing the policy we want to do, and which was the mandate given to the mayor of Paris during the election.
I just took a quick thought in to follow up
Please.
what Anouch said. It just might be of interest. Way we build a bit of team spirit, if you like. The 10 leaders of our councils are the cabinet. So I give them portfolios. One will lead on skills, another one will lead on housing, another one on culture. And that kind of, it's not on the sort of issues that are specific to the area. It's more just that they are involved in the sort of, the policy leading role at the GM level. Just that builds collaboration and, a sense of team spirit, if you like.
Thank you so much for the question. Thanks for the answers. Next question, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jackie, and I've got a question from table 8. So this is for any of the panel. So drawing from your own experiences, can you give me maybe 2 or 3 examples of things that maybe you would change in your own model?
Shall I jump in?
Okay. Any takers?
Yeah, I'll jump in just because it's relevant. I'm in a discussion with the government at the moment. They've offered us a negotiation about deepening the devolution powers. And the truth for me, 5 years in, is our system's like an unfinished jigsaw. We have some powers in certain places, but not in others. So skills is an example, actually, where we need a lot more. So it's also quite a complicated system, mine, in that you've got to get everybody to agree. And then when you do all agree, you can move them one direction. But, that I don't think you can change that, actually. But what could be changed is, if you're going to go with devolution, do it properly. Don't do half a job. Don't give people. If you give people housing powers, but not, let's say, transport powers, you can't do the placemaking role properly. The mayoral role works when the mayor can join the dots between housing, transport, environment, and you can create places that work. If you give half devolution, it's kind of not going to work, basically, and we're in a bit of an unfinished jigsaw place at the moment, with skills being our biggest gap. Hope that helps a little.
Yeah. Thanks, Andy.
I would ask that we have more powers that the state currently has, because we have the states and then the cities and town. And if anyone wants to study up, it's called Dillon's Law. which determines the balance between cities and towns. Boston does not have the kind of home rule that lots of other cities have in the States. I was part of a study, I helped to write it, called Boston Bound. Once again, if someone wants to do some digging, it's out there. We could do better in terms of that balance.
So much for those answers. Next question, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paul, and I'm representing, hopefully not misrepresenting, Table 9. And I also want to ask you any difficult questions, Andy, like are you a red or a blue, or as somebody suggested to me, you might even be a closet Liverpool fan. But we we heard this morning from Sean O'Riordan, and it was incredible. He gave this incredible variegatedness in relation to the different local models of governance around, he talked about UK, Germany, America, New Zealand, etc. And it was just incredible how variegated it was. And he actually did say also that Ireland are the laggards. So I think this whole process is that we get out of that category. So the question that came up from our table was, what are I assume that you all inherited the models of local government that you're now mayors for. You may adapt it and help to adapt it, but you would have inherited it. But what are the pros and cons of the models that you've inherited, the key pros and cons of the model that you've inherited as mayors in your various cities? Thank you.
Any takers?
I think we've done fine with a strong mayor and a council, and we've done much better with the council elected mostly by district than a council all at large, where at one point the council was full of Irish lawyers.
Our pro is our con, if you like, in that this system is very, as I say, lean. So the 10 councils and their leaders are the cabinet. So the pro of that is if you get everybody aligned, the power of the whole place is moving in the same direction. Everybody, we're all doing the same policy, top to bottom. The con is there's quite a lot of work involved in getting everybody aligned, and that's you lose the ability maybe to move more quickly. And that is a judgment call, I think, for this kind of system that you want. It will be different in different places, and I think that's the where the judgment's got to come in. In terms of football, I mean, do you think I'd ever be elected mayor of Greater Manchester if I was a Copite, if I was a Liverpool supporter? No chance on God's earth would that happen. But I happen to be born in Liverpool, as some of you may know. And I'm actually an Everton supporter. So I'm recovering from a traumatic fight against relegation. But Everton are the acceptable face of Merseyside football in Greater Manchester. So they tolerate me. And obviously, I line up with City and United in wanting Liverpool to lose every single game that they play. So that answers it. And if this is my last contribution, I'll just say really quickly. Do you know what? Can I just say this to the room? If a mayor of Dublin was in place with a combined authority or whatever structure you agree on, I think we'd be over there all the time, myself and the mayor of Liverpool. We came before, but we would collaborate so much more, I think, and get away from some of the nonsense that our government sort of speaks about Ireland at times. We would just move everything more into a more collaborative, practical. We signed an agreement with Belfast, Liverpool, Manchester, Belfast, Dublin. The four of us just need to get working together on green energy and all kinds of things. And I just think I'd be on the phone to the mayor of Dublin every fortnight if you had one.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the answers. Thank you, Paul. Next question, please. We're just on the final lap now. 6 minutes to go, and we have 3 questions.
Hi, I'm Shifa from Table 10. Our question was, does the power structure in place need to be specific to the population size? So when we're considering possibilities for the future of Dublin and we're looking at international examples, thank you for them, is scalability an issue? Thanks.
I think the bigger the city, the more likely it is that you may have to have more councillors, more cabinet members, however you want to classify them. And that's probably something you just got to figure out. There's no one answer.
I would add that in Paris, the fact that we are a big city and the capital, we have a specific status in Paris, which is not the same as the other cities. We have certain cities in France have a specific status, such as Paris, Lyon, Marseille, so the big cities. I think it's obviously linked to the number of inhabitants, of course. So I think the more you are in a city, the more you have to make local levels, you know, the more you have to delegate to the local in order for the inhabitants to feel that the public policy is coming to them and not that this is the big machine they don't understand. And so they have to see the policy in the street, they have to see the elected official in the street, be able to speak to them. So I think the more a city is big, the more a city has inhabitants, the more it has to be, and we have to create some intermediary levels of action and of representatives.
Thank you so much for the question. Thank you for the answers again. Super.
Hello, I'm Frances from Table 11. Dublin currently has 4 councils, the City Council representing 1 million people, and 3 other councils from the outer suburbs and county representing 300,000 people each, roughly. And do you think that should be broken up or changed in some way to work effectively under a directly elected mayor?
Ooh, can I just jump in there? In our model, you would become a combined authority. So the 4 councils would create a new entity that was a combined authority that you were all shareholders in. You all control. And I think this is where it gets difficult. But I think that for that to work, you've got to have parity. I don't think Dublin can have always a casting vote. The city of Dublin. Now I have this problem because I have the city of Manchester, the city of Salford, and then 8 what you might call smaller outlying town districts, but they all have 1 vote. The way I manage that is you have to recognize the preeminence of Manchester in our system. So typically the mayor of Manchester, the leader of Manchester or the leader of Salford would be deputy mayor to me, or would have the economic brief. If that, do you see where I'm coming from? I think having a system that you've got to have the city. The city can't dominate, I don't think. I think you've got to have a sort of parity amongst, amongst the members, but you do have to recognize the strength and the preeminence of the city within the system. That's how it works for us anyway. And it does work, by the way.
Thank you for that answer. And we're on to our final question, please, from table 12.
Hi, my name is Kriya, and I have a question from table 12. It's probably quite a broad question for the last few minutes, but we were wondering, how do the different entities reach agreement between mayor, councillors and central government, especially if there's different political opinions or affiliations in the mix?
With difficulty. I've never known a city councillor who didn't dream about being mayor, and that included me. And I think that's the case today. Men, women, white, black, you name it. It's just part of the psyche that you have when you're in elected government. So that's just the reality of it. Some people are good at negotiating, some people are not.
Andy, maybe?
Yeah, I sort of agree with Larry about, I'm not racing back to Westminster, but I wouldn't rule out trying to go back one day. I couldn't do a worse job down there, could I, than the current incumbent in Downing Street. But in terms of how to get agreement, as I said, our system was just born out of a fairly sort of direct deal, and to not great, if you like, from a sort of built from the bottom up perspective. But I wouldn't. Don't over obsess on perfection first time. I mean, I think you're building it in a great way, by the way. This event today is amazing. It's fun, as Anouch said, wonderful to be part of it, actually, to just give some input into it. But don't worry if you won't get perfection. Yours like ours will be embryonic for a while, and you'll need to kind of see how it goes. And I think there's plenty to draw on. there's plenty of models of governance and plenty of best practice out there. But I think it is about just getting a functioning system. You know, Limerick, I think, obviously is going first, isn't it? And, you know, there hopefully we'll have a mayor in post. I think everyone then network the cities. We've got something called the M10. So the 10 metro mayors that includes Sadiq Khan and 9 others, you know, me and Sadiq and 8 others. You know, we always are working, talking about what powers we need, how do we evolve this system. Bear in mind, we are fighting a very London-centric country here, or Westminster-centric country. So, you know, we're working, changing, thinking all the time. And yeah, we're getting somewhere, I hope. But anyway, thanks so much for letting us be part of this day. It's been an amazing experience to be with you all. I'll never recover from being accused of being a Liverpool supporter, but I'll let that go for now.
And Anouch, would you like to conclude?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very hard question, and obviously I don't have the answer, but it's very hard to be able to find the field of consensus. Even in, I mean, most of it in Paris, when we have all these layers of, you know, local authorities, we have the city of Paris, we have the metropole of the Grand Paris, we have the Paris region, we have the government above us. So, I mean, it's very difficult to find a way of consensus, but we are trying our best, and hopefully the new French government will help us in making Paris a better city and more in the way of the climate change, in order to change the city in the way of, you know, changing the deliberation and bills in order to make a better place for Parisians and tourists, and everybody's welcome in Paris, obviously. So.
Well, thank you so much for all the questions. You did marvelous. Give yourselves a round of applause. That brings to a conclusion our contribution from our international experts. And please give a big round of applause for the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Mr. Andy Burnham. The Vice Mayor of Paris, Ms. Anouch Toranian. And the former Mayor of Boston City Council and author, Mr. Larry DiCara. Just on behalf of the Assembly, you'll see in front of me here we have the Irish phrase Tinlol Saronach, which the direct translation means a free gathering of people. So we have a free gathering of citizens of Dublin City and County. And to get your contribution that has been so rich, so broad, so deep, you've really given us a lot of stimulation to consider some of the broader challenges that we face when we need to report back to our House of Oireachtas, our Parliament, with recommendations and proposals of what type of directly elected Lord Mayor and local structures that we should have for Dublin. And it is really appropriate that we have these 3 countries, Great Britain, United States of America and France, contributing to this debate. A lot of our grandparents would have travelled, and cousins and uncles would have travelled to Great Britain, predominantly Manchester. My parents, or my uncles from West Clare, would have got employment in Manchester in the 50s, and it's great to have you here with us today, Andy. There's great connections with Boston, and it's such an Irish, a home from home for so many of our relations and relatives and the Irish diaspora. And to have you, Larry, here today was fantastic. And for Anouch, one of our great writers, James Joyce, would have finished Ulysses in Paris, and indeed Finnegan's Wake in Paris. We celebrate Bloomsday, I think, the 16th of June. And he wrote that when I die, Dublin will be written in my heart. So I hope you can take a little bit of Dublin away from you this evening for you, Anouch, and thank for joining us this morning, Larry. It's getting to midday in Boston, and indeed to just very close to us in Manchester. Andy, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been absolutely amazing. I know I've had great fun listening to it, and our assembly were absolutely fantastic as well with the questions. So I wish you a nice weekend and time to spend with your family, and thanks for spending time with the Dublin family, and we hope to see you all soon. Thank you.